shall merit to live with the consciousness of the Alef Beis.
We got it all.
Not expecting this. This is a
I got you.
Okay, all right. What's so first time?
What's your name?
What's my name? My name is Yehuda Leib Katz. I'm a sofer. Like I have sofer smicha, sofer scribe
Ordination?
ordination.
Accreditation?
I got my certification a few years ago. And you're supposed to like renew it every year, but, but I haven't.
So you're expired?
Well, expired. But still consider myself. I've been writing for 10 years.
What is the art of the sofer?
I think that's a good question. Writing as a scribe isn't like we like to call it a craft, so it's like an art. But it's really not an art, meaning it's what we call avodat Hashem, which isn't art. You know what I mean? Like you could say like tefillah is an art. Like you have to know how to daven, you have to know how to pray. But I would say that at the end of the day, it's not an art like the other crafts. So I would say that it's what's called in Hebrew Malechet Shamayim, which is like you can make the craft of heaven or the craft of godly craft.
Celestial.
So that's like just a comment on the word. Like, is it an art form?
Right.
So I would say it's what is a sofer stam? What is a scribe? It's first of all a merit that you get to be a partner with God in creation. Why do I say that? Because if the world is created with words, and the Zohar says that God looked at the Torah and created the world. So then if I'm writing a Torah, then I'm creating the blueprints of the world.
Wild. Would you be so kind to show us how you write maybe the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Beis, and maybe explain to us what each letter means as you write it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have here klaf, which is cowhide. And before you write each letter, so you want to have intent, or what's in Hebrew is called kavanah, and to direct your consciousness that we're writing the given letter and also the word. So you're supposed to, according to the law, say the word you're about to say out loud. Like every time you write a word, you say it out loud. So it's actually quite deep because then you're writing and you're also speaking the Torah. That, like there's a parallel creation happening. If you get what I mean. Okay, so Aleph. It's an Aleph. An Aleph is, you could say, the deepest letter because it doesn't have a sound. It's a letter that has no sound, and it obviously goes with it being the first letter. That if I'll write the second letter, because you can't talk about an Aleph without having a bet. Which is a bet is the second letter. It's crown. So we're going to talk about the bet. The bet is each letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value.
Wait, what's an Aleph?
So again, you have to talk about a bet to get to an Aleph. In order to talk about godliness, you have to have a world first. To be conscious of. So a bet is 2 in its numerical value. It's the second letter, so it's 2. So offhand, it already represents duality. So that already, there being 2 makes there being an Aleph, or there being something that was before the duality, something that is not to be taken for granted. Because if we were just in 1, then okay, it's 1. Like there's no revolutionary idea. From the moment that you have a bet, duality, then it's like, oh, there's oneness. So the Aleph is that oneness before creation. If bet is the duality that begins with creation, it's the first letter of the Torah, it's the first letter of Genesis in creating the world. So the Aleph before the bet represents that that which can't be spoken about, which is my cop-out. Not my cop-out, but... So the form of the Aleph is very deep. If you want, you can get a close-in on the Aleph, and the viewers can maybe see how... The viewers can... The viewers themselves, they can maybe think of the secret that... I mean, there's endless secrets on each letter, but especially the Aleph, without me having to reveal it, they can ponder the form. And
Can you help open the door for us?
I've opened the door. I've talked about the bet. The bet is, as you can see, it's walls. It's 3 walls. There's 3 walls, and because there's 3 walls with an open space, so it's as if the bet is creating a space where that duality can exist. That's not it's not nullified by the oneness. But the Aleph is a very deep type of unity. There's different levels of unity. So now I'm going to get to the 3rd letter. I'm already going to talk about a certain revolutionary idea that if there wasn't duality, then there wouldn't necessarily be such a revolutionary or a wondrous idea that there can be also, in the words of Hegel, of thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis, right? That you have this duality, but then that they can come together. Now that's obviously depths of numbers, not necessarily the depths of the letters, but you have with it, because the letters are also numerology, so you also have the depths of numbers with the depths. But the Gimels, each letter as well, not only has teachings in its form and in its number, but also in its name. So a Gimel is from the word Gamal, which is camel. The letter Bet, the 2nd letter, is from the word Bait, which is house. And Aleph has a few different meanings. The historical meaning is ox, because the historical alphabet, right? You have the original Hebrew, which is called Hebraic script, and this is Ashuric script. So the Hebraic script was very close to to nature and to the way that they lived. And so the Gimel has the maybe mystical vocabulary. The meaning in Olam Asiyah, or in the lowest world, right? Of the Gimel is Gamal, and Bet is Bait. But if I take things deeper, because there's different levels to all incidents and all events, and each phenomena has different levels of ways of understanding. So the Gimel can also be called Gimilut Chasadim, right? It's a type of bringing sustenance into the world. These things are already talked about by in the Talmud, in the major script of the oral tradition, in Masechet Shabbat, page 104a, for those who want to look it up. So the Gimel is seen as somebody who's actually running, like a person who's running to give charity to a poor person. Now on the deeper level, it's God who's giving sustenance to humanity, which is seen as an essence that has no sustenance without God. So you have then the Hay. The Hay is a Dalid with the letter Yud inside, which will be the 10th letter. The Hay is already seen as a bringing of the divine in the world. Now I'm going to go into the Vav. The Vav, if the Hay is the divine, the divine sustenance in the world, on a more intimate level, then the Vav is the ability for that sustenance to be connected, to receive it, and to be conscious of that. And the Zayin, 7th letter, which represents, each letter represents a different day of the week, from 1 to 7. Oops. So the Zayin is already that sustenance being made conscious of, which is an idea of the Sabbath, which is the 7th day. So after you have the Zayin, you're going to have the 8th letter. The 8th letter is already one step above the 7th letter. So if 7 is the spiritual within the world that I'm conscious of, so the 8 is seen as the spirituality that is beyond nature, which is seen as Kodesh, holiness. And the Zayin is obviously, you can see, is basically two, like the Chet, the 8th letter, it basically has two of the Zayin's body. You can see there's like a unity between the two with a higher connection. It's already going right from from an individual story to a Zugi story, or a marriage story, a story about building something together, about not just having holiness in the world that I'm conscious of, but it's actually becoming part of a way of life. Which brings me to the tet, the 9th letter. The 9th letter goes like this. The tet, which is 9, is that the goodness that we created after being beyond just the natural and the holiness in the natural, that's in the higher worlds. Now we're one stage deeper into more of maybe like the human lifestyle, and that within that world there's also holiness, and not just in the external part of it, but also in the internal part, which is why it points inwards. This letter has it's as if pointing, like there's a basin created in this letter that's not in the 8th letter. You get to the 10th letter, which is the 1st and the 10th have parallels. The 10th is it's almost like a journey to the 10, which is the yud. Its legs aren't touching the ground, representing the holiness that is within the tet that they found.
Within
the tet, within the 9th letter. The 9th letter is about the basin that's been created from the 8th letter, the home, the partnership between between spouses, and the yud is attaining that holiness, the divine. And then you have another 2 sets. So after the yud is a chaf. And you have its final form at the end of a letter, which the Gemara says that the Nevi'im renewed. The prophets renewed. And the kaf is already almost takes you back to the creation story, which actually makes sense, right? If it goes to the Aleph, there's things that are actually similar between the Aleph and the Chaf, because the Aleph has the 2 yuds, and if that's 10, and this is 20, so you have the 10 and the 10, which gets you the 20. The Chaf Sofi is the end form is basically the chaf. You take the bottom leg and you drop it down and it becomes open. There's depths within each of the, why the form is like that, why there's a final form. There's 5 letters that get final forms. But the chaf there's 2 letters that have symmetry. The zayin, if you put a line down the middle, and then the chaf, if you put a line horizontally. The chaf is seen as an extension as well of 2 yuds, one that's above and below, and they reflect each other. So it kind of represents the next stage, that the yud goes to a chaf. Because the godliness that is found within the world in the form of a yud might sound a bit complex, but the aleph to the yud is, even though I said it goes from the godliness of creating the natural to the natural that's also within the human realm of the house, and the goodness that's found within civilization and within communities and etc. and our institutions. So it's still all on a divine level. I mean, those processes are also above and not just below. So the chaf is also is taking that one step, that those things should be reflected also down,
because
it has the reflection. Yeah. You have the highest letter, Lamed.
Highest as in it reaches.
It reaches the
highest.
highest. It's the only letter that goes above the line. It has the base form of the chaf and has the base form of a vav, the sixth letter, together. So if the chaf represents kind of the world that has the divine symmetry within it, so then the lamed is already taking that symmetry and using that to connect to higher realms, connecting that to living to God consciousness. But then the vav moves when I get to the next letter, which is called a mem. The mem is one of the favorite letters of the Kabbalists. It has its final form. You have an open mem and a closed mem. And it takes the vav and brings it to the side. And I think it kind of represents that the sustenance and the union that's created through the lamed is then kind of created as it also becomes a base within the world, because the vav, that connection, is not just me to the transcendent, but also me into the intimate, into the immanence. And that can be an open connection or it can be closed, which is meaning I can connect to that sustenance in an open way, where things are being created within the world through that divine sustenance, or the mem can be closed, where I might go into a ritual bath, like a mikvah, which is supposed to be built at like a mem sofi, like a final mem, like lalacha, which is actually very deep. It's supposed to have 4 sides.
Mem for mikvah.
Mem for mikvah.
Mem for the 40.
It's also the numerical value of 40, and it has to have 40 seah. Yeah. It has to have a measurement of 40. Yeah. So what's a closed mem is when I have that sustenance, but I'm kind of nullified within it. It's not necessarily creative. It's not like having a Sabbath that you're just like in one place, where you're in a form of oneness, of stillness, of almost like meditation, right? That's going to be a closed mem, where it's closed. You're not out in the world. It's not like an open mem, if I could say like that. Then you get to the 50th letter.
Not the 50th letter. What letter which?
Oh, sorry.
Is 50?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Letter which is numerically 50. Didn't come out the best, but that's okay. And it's called a nun. It has a final form. Nun. The nun is kind of there's certain things that I guess are too complex and not necessarily the right place to talk about them. But one of the things that a nun is in Aramaic is a fish, and it's can be seen as also the ability to not be within the world and the divine sustenance of the mem, of the water, of this letter. of the numerical 40 letter. And the nun is the ability to kind of be in that and be fruitful in it and be creative in it, and being it sustenance that creativity, and you and that vitality, and it's something that cultivates you. Like you feel like it's that has a final form of a nun, the long nun. You get to the samech. I do love writing samech. So samech is the 60th letter.
It's funny you keep saying 60th.
Oh, because it is.
Yeah.
It's 60 olives.
It's 60 hours. Got it.
That's what the Baal Shem Tov says, at least. No, it is the 60th letter.
Yeah?
Yeah, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40.
Gotcha. The Chaf is 10
We don't
letters.
count like...
We don't count
Okay.
like the Greeks.
Yeah. So Samech is has a numerical value of 60. And it's already a type of enclosement. And it's one of the parallels of it is to protection, right? Somech noflim is the verse in Psalms, in Tehillim, and it's seen as okay, you're in this world, you're the fish in the center, in this creative space, right? You're things are happening, and you need to have also what's called mekifim. You need to have also things that protect you. You say things if it's mental, like your ability to have emotional intelligence, and right, it's not just only outside of you, but the things that help you deal with the external world and the world in general, and it has also more mystical connotations of things that envelop us and surround us. And Samech, I mean, each letter has its things. So Samech Ain. Ain is a fun letter. Ain is a little bit small, but it means it's I didn't go over all of the meanings of each letter, but Ain is I.
I-E-Y-E.
E-Y-E. And its numerical value is 70, and there's also a parallel between the number 1 and the number 70. Like 70 in the Bible often means it's like a symbol for multiplicity, and 1 is the unity. So it's like 1 God, 70 nations, 70 languages, 70 souls went down to Egypt, and right, lots of 70. And it's almost right, like going from the Samach to the Ain. I would say maybe it's like I mean, there's a lot of things to say, because a Samach is a Chaf and a Vav, the 6th letter with the 11th letter, and it creates like a closed sphere. Whereas the Ain is already taking the form of, well, it depends on, there's different rabbis who say that the Ain has the leg of the 7th letter on the left, and then the right, it could be like the head of a Yod, it can be the body of a Vav, it can be a Nun, this letter. So you can say, okay, well, what's the Nun or what's the Vav, and then what's that mean when it's connected to the Zayin? That's like one way to interpret.
So it's the letters coming together to create new letters.
Yes, each letters, there's certain base letters, and then you could say each letter is created by Yuds. the 10th letter, which is like a dot. Like each dot is a yod. And then you can say that each letter is created by base letters, and there's 7 base letters. So the Ain, I would say, is once you have the envelopment, the Gale envelopment of the Samech, so maybe the Ain is already something more physical.
Basically, what was the last thing you said? The Ain is?
The Ain is already, right, it's with the eyes, and it's about the multiplicity, so already kind of brings me out now more to the physical, right? I already kind of had that from the Chaf, where the divine reflected into the world. So then each letter here has brought me more to the divine within, like, the world. There's a certain form that's in these sets of letters that isn't in the top letters. There are certain things that I didn't do, like this is supposed to be more curved and things, but like this is supposed to be more straight. But my point is that there's something more earthly in this bottom set. Things about that are more within Olam Hazeh, in this world, and you also see that in the form of the Chaf, which is, right, like, more physical. It gets its form from the Bet, which is the creation. And you have, like, you have two, like, being a sofer, if I can kind of take a tangent back to what we spoke about in the beginning, there's in the type of, you have different types of scripts. You have the Middle Eastern script of the Sephardim, and then you have the European script of the Ashkenazi, right? You have the Chabad has its script, right? So, but if I'm talking about this script, which the Shulchan Aruch says it's like the script, that's why it's called the Beit Yosef script. So it's there's two basic forms. You have squares and circles. Like, there's a lot of squares, and then there's, like, round. It's almost like you're taking the ink, and you're doing those two different types of divine motions. There's, like the Talmud says, like, there's squares in the Yerushalmi, in Masechet Nazir, I think 8a. It says that there's squares in the squares represent some things that are created by humans, and things that are round are usually natural. So you have those two forces also within the letters. There's a dance between them, like, right, the different rounds meet squares, and squares meet rounds, and it's a beautiful thing
between the natural and the supernatural, between the
maybe the human and the natural. So then it gets me to Pei. Wish I had a longer piece, because then you would have the first 10 with the next 10, because there's final forms, so it takes up space. That's the final form of this letter, which is Pei. So it's a Pei, mouth. Right, so you have the eye in the mouth, which has its own depths. And the Pei is also this Chaf form with the Vav now upside down and turned inwards. You might even say that, like, the different letters here are different parts of the body in general, right? The Yod is the hand, the Chaf is the palm. And each of these letters, I think you can associate with different limbs, but Okay, so this is the next letter. Going from the Ain to the Pei, so there's, right, something is going back inwards, the Vav going within. And if it's Pei with his mouth, so the speaking already is a new type of intervention, right? Like Ain is already, right, man seeing, man speaking, right? There's a new type of interaction between world and man. This is the tzadi. It's the hardest letter for me to write. I would assume it's the hardest for all Sofrim, but I shouldn't say that. I think I actually did it pretty well. Okay, and then so we have here the tzadi, which has also its final form. It's the last letter that has a final form. Also, the final forms are made by base letters. Like, it's not just the simple forms. So beautiful. It's so deep. Like, אין דברים כאלה. Okay, so the tzadi, it already has its association with, it's built off of a nun and a yud. Right, I would say it's a continuation of the nun within the world, right? Again, each letter has so many different parallels to different mekubalim, to different stages. Trying to, right, go on a certain one tether here, but there's things that I'm also intentionally not going into. So tzadi, is all right. Tzadi is associated with the tzaddik, the righteous person, who is the nun, right? He's the fish going in the world, being within the waters of creation, being active, but there's a yud on his back, right? There's almost godliness that is present.
He's like giving a piggyback to the yud.
It's actually very because as you go from the Aleph, which is the unspeakable, to the Taf, which is going to be the most physical, the most within the world. So you have like the different stages within that. So tzadi is already the righteous person being able to be within in the depths of the world. It has associations with covenant and being bounded to God, right? The yud being bound to the nun. It has associations with humility.
With humility?
Mm-hmm. It's like bent over. Kuf. Kuf means monkey. Kuf. Kuf, right, kufa, right, also you can see, by the way, the letters that have the final form, except for the mem, they all go downward, so it's like very much bringing kochot energy down into the world. Like, there's a lot of more kochot, of more energies of bringing things down than in the first row. So to the kuf is also bringing something down.
It sounds like it's really a journey all the way from the Aleph, all the way down.
It's definitely,
to the Taf.
yeah. The kuf is it's connected to the tzadi, I would say, because it has to do with energies of imitation, like also imitating the divine. That's how Kirk talks about it. Which a tzadi, it's a righteous person, a tzaddik, is doing, and it's funny because the letter of this letter is a tzadi.
Mm-hmm.
So why do some people say, what's the name? It's a tzaddik,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the name.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because when you say the Alef Bet, so you say samech ayin pei, tzaddik kuf, tzaddik kuf.
Oh, tzaddik kuf.
but it's tzadi kuf, but because it's together, so often people say tzadik.
That's very
So, but it's because, but there is, I would say, right, there's a lot of meaning with that. There's the kuf with next to it. And each letter also has its, because it's creation, and creation has Etz Chaim and Etz Hadat, and the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. So you also have those parallels within each letter, right? You have the places where the energy, right? Torah can be Sam Hamavet or Sam Chaim, the drugs of death or life. Depends where you take it to. So each letter, right? The sages say that the letters of in Masechet Shabbat, in the Tractate of Sabbath, in the Babylonian Talmud, that the letters Shin Kuf Reish, so the Kuf being one of those letters, stands on one leg. So they're making an emphasis on more of the negative side.
Shin Kuf Reish spells
Sheker, which is lie, falsehood.
So,
but it's already, Kuf is already going into what's called the Kochot ha'efed, if I'm saying it correct in Hebrew, like you're mamash going below the line. It's like you're going into the places where there can be darkness. And it's bringing Zayin, the seventh letter, into it. Meaning you're also bringing God into and this is a chaf, which we said is kind of the world, or the world being a reflection of divinity and
bringing you into the darkness.
Right. Now kuf is already, I should have maybe wrote it on this line because it's already maybe not necessarily. It's 100. So it finishes the second set. So I guess maybe I wrote it on the right line. This is going to be the next line, the Reish, which is Rosh or head. It could also be the Rasha, the evil person, right? It's like
they come both ways.
Right, and it also has one leg. It's part of the letters in the Hebrew word falsehood. But it's almost like it's an extension of the Vav, of the sixth letter, right? It's taking maybe the divinity and more of the divinity, bringing things more in. So the Reish is already maybe bringing more of like if it's the head, so then it's like asking the question, well, what does the head have to do with being at the end of the alphabet, being where we said is more physical, right? So it's maybe it's bringing more of a consciousness aspect of the man being within the world. He has his eyes, he has his nose, he has his covenant, maybe his brit milah. He has his kuf, his ability to be engaging in the world, right? The ability to imitate, the ability to go down into the world. And the Rosh is the Reish, which comes from the word Rosh. It's maybe like another aspect that's being brought. Where then I get into the...
It's interesting that the head only comes at the end.
Yeah. That has to do with the Aleph as well. The Shin, I didn't write it so well because I have this Sadi here that's like this letter that Usually it wouldn't be right next to it. The shin. Wow, the shin is associated. The mem is associated with water, so the shin is with fire. And it represents more of like this, right? Also like a separation. It also has one leg, and shin is the fire. As fire, it's the energy that also creates it's the energy of kilayon, like from termination, like that things are like you have the plus energy of the divine, and you have the negative energy of the divine. That so the shin has associations with that. From the moment that there's creation, so there's also the physical world doesn't last forever. Mm. So it's the energy that things don't last. I just want to say that the shin is also teeth. Shin is shinaim, it's teeth in Hebrew, which is also the part of our, like that same terminating energy, like it's breaking things down, like our food, right? Like it's part of the things that, like we have sustenance, we have mass, and then through the teeth, it breaks it down, and just like a fire burns and takes the mass and breaks it down. And it's like the same. I don't know how to speak this in English, but like that's which is worked with in Judaism and the Mizbeach, like in sacrifices. Shabbat candle with the kavanot of the Ari, like the meditations of certain Kabbalists. Kufrei shin and tough. Shechina. Which is which has associations with Malchut, which is the negative. Okay. It's funny because, well, maybe I should stop talking while I'm writing. Okay. I'm writing a tough. So Taf is the last letter. We've made it. The last letter, Taf, has associations with music, with notes. Tav is a note in modern Hebrew, like musical notes. Also, I think I've heard of associations also with the drum, like taf or tof is a drum. It has a kind of a form of a drum, but it's interesting because it's an end. It's the end, and it's seen as the most physical point. Say, right, you have the two legs going down that are standing strong. You have it's basically made of a dalid, which makes sense because the dalid, I didn't go into this, but the dalid is I just talked about it as being the poor person that receives the coin or the sustenance from the gimel, from the third letter. The dalid is as a poor person, it represents the energy that within the world that the world has, that or I should say maybe that is within the soul, that they're, because all the letters, even though we've seen like within the letters I've basically spoken about it as a divine creation thread, but you can see, because there's a parallel right already in the Mishnah, that the dam is in olam, that the man is also the world, so these things can also be reflected on the soul level. Within if I can bring it to the soul level, because I think that will be most understandable by people watching, is that the dalid is that I have no delayed garme klum, right? It doesn't have any sustenance on its own, which may not sound understood without any context, but so the taf has that form, but it also has a vav within it. Now, those who say no, it should be a small daled, like it should be a small, the fourth letter, but made upside down and small, and like a dal within a dal, and like the you can understand where I'm going with that. The taf, if it's a vav, let's say, then it already says, okay, I have a daled, but it's being connected. And what's it being connected to? I would say the divine that continues on. Like, even though the world is, it's like saying, okay, no more, like the world ends. Well, it's like the world ends, but there's actually an infinity that it, if the world is a reflection of the divine, then there's actually some sort of infinitude that's within the physical itself. Right, and you can see that in outer space, how it just continues expanding or not, right? Whatever you want to take it to. But there's something in the physical world itself and within our souls that is actually, right? Our soul doesn't just die, according to Judaism, right? It goes on to its next stage. So that's going to be the taf.
I like this idea that the divinity comes through all the stages until obliteration, and then it continues. Even
Well, it's not that the divine is obliterated, obviously. It's just like that there's the divine, like there's the divine plus and the divine minus.
But the divine continues through all that. That after all of existence, after this whole world ceases to exist, the divine continues.
Yeah.
And beyond it all.
Because the Aleph is 400. The Taf is 400 olives. That's what the Baal Shem Tov said we need to do. You have to lift up all the olives. Do jXaviErre. So that was that.
Any last words?
Last words?
Yeah.
There's so much to say. So yeah, that was literally and intentionally a tip of the iceberg. Because I think these things should be learned in intimacy and not on YouTube.
People can reach out to you?
You can always reach out to me. Yeah, you can put... I like getting emails. So, literally tip of the iceberg, literally. I have nothing else.
What's the conclusion? What's the takeaway?
The takeaway is that we've just seen one thread of the letters on a very deep level, and I think I'm not sure if I even feel comfortable with what I brought here. I don't feel comfortable. And I've been trying to play with it and see. But the letters, it's Malachet Shemayim, right? Closing the circle. It's mamash in our word, like this is just the base. This is just the foundations, and each word is created with these letters, and there's meditations, and there's Avodat Hashem. I don't know how to say that, and you have all sorts of divine service, and we shall merit to live with the consciousness of the Alef Beis. Shkoyach. Okay, goodbye.
Looks good?
Yeah, I think so.